coming to an end on the 31st of January. Now, this raises many, many questions. And where is the concept of social justice? What will happen to many South Africans who have been relying on the grant during COVID-19? And if this grant is not extended, and we've heard recently the president of the country, President Cyril Ramaphosa, talking about the coffers being dry. And this obviously raises many other questions as to why the coffers have actually run dry. And we see the looting, we see the theft, we've seen what has taken place over years and years and years. And that is the reason why we find ourselves in this situation. And it is important for us, it is important for civil society to ensure that this matter is taken up strongly. And this morning we're joined on the line by Lynette Maart, who is the National Director for the Black Sash. Lynette, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Ian,
Inayat,
Inayat and listeners. Thank you very much for supporting us, helping me there.
Well,
Yes.
definitely. In fact, I think this is absolutely important. This is crucial, Lynette, because, when we learn about these social grants, and we know that it's not a lot of money, but when we learn that they may not be extended after the 31st of January, there's a major cause of concern, considering where we are, considering that we are under the firm grip of the second wave of COVID-19, and people are vulnerable. They need assistance, and they need assistance badly.
Yep. Right. So let me jump in there, and thank you for that kind of introduction. We know that when COVID started at the beginning in May, that the government introduced the COVID grant, COVID Social Relief of Distress grant, which is 350 Rand. It also introduced a caregiver's grant for 500 Rand, because as we know, the child support grant is 450 Rand in comparison with the other grants. And also there are caregivers who might have lost their jobs, who don't have any income. And that grant terminated in October. So what we are asking government is to extend this COVID Social Relief of Distress grant, because, as you've rightly pointed out, there is a more deadly second wave or strand of the coronavirus. And we are a country in lockdown level 3. The economy is still hemorrhaging. Jobs, at one point we had about 10.8 million people that were unemployed. That number is growing because businesses are not able to operate in the manner that they can. But it is in this time, when government, in the time of disaster, in time of crisis, that government must intervene to alleviate this problem. Because what we are going to see come next week, people are going to begin to queue in long queues for food parcels. And we know that with regards to the social protocol, that would not be acceptable. But the country doesn't have a proper system of supporting those who have no or little income between the ages of 18 to 59 with some form of income support. And that's the campaign that we are asking people to support. Government in its recent statement said that it will take about 2 years to put in place that a basic income grant, given regulations, discussion papers, consultations, signing the budget. But we have a crisis now, and that crisis needs to be dealt with in a very decisive way. And we're appealing to the President and to the Minister of Social Development and to National Treasury to really put resources, to make resources available for this temporary grant to be extended until that new system is in place.
Well, certainly,
and that the caregivers are also covered in that grant, because if you are a caregiver and you don't get any other monies as an adult, the state also needs to take care of that.
Yes, but also,
Apologies.
Lynette, what we're talking about is the government talking about putting systems in place. And sometimes I believe that you can have the best of systems. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, it is what's on the ground that actually matters. And,
Yes.
when I look at, for instance, Black Sash, obviously championing human rights, it is about basic human rights of people in
Mm.
terms of providing for them. And it is a responsibility of the government. And, when we're talking about putting the best of systems in place, and when the government says that we don't have the money, now that is a major cause for concern, because over the years, when we look at the theft, when we look at the looting, when we look at the corruption over the years, and that is a point that I made earlier, this is the reason why we find ourselves in this position today, where the government is obviously pleading poverty or even bankruptcy.
Well, I think that in many countries, I note your point about the looting and the theft, and the State Capture Commission of Zondo is revealing all of that in full view to the public. Um, but it is not the time for austere measures. When there is a crisis, when there is a disaster, government must find the money to help people deal with that disaster. They can't just leave it and say, we don't have money. Um, and besides, I mean, many people have said that, and economists have said that, if you put more money into the hands of people, you will also stimulate the economy. So the arguments of austerity, the arguments of we don't have resources must be debunked. There are ways in which the state can find that money, and it can also help to stimulate the economy, because as people buy food, as people buy the bare necessities, those are economic activities that can drive the economy.
Yes. Now, I see, obviously, you saying that you would like to meet with the president to discuss in detail your demands. Is there a possibility of this meeting?
Okay, we have asked the president, his office came back to us and referred us to the Minister of Social Development. We have tried our office yesterday, and after a radio interview, the PA did come back to us. We will hear today what the outcome of the discussion is with the minister, and when we will have a meeting. But what we are saying, why we've asked a meeting with the president, is because there is policy and there's also financial resources to make it possible. So you need the Minister of Social Development, you need National Treasury, you need the broader understanding of the policy. Hence our request for the president to be involved. But we will continue to ask for these meetings to see whether we can secure from government an extension of the grant.
Yes. Now, just one other thing, Lynette, and we've seen the president of the country over and over again making this point where he's appealed to the country for unity, to be united against this pandemic that we are faced with and going through. And at the same time, in terms of doing whatever we can, making every effort as far as fighting this pandemic is concerned, reducing the numbers and doing whatever we need to do. But on the one hand, it's fine to rally together, but again, the point that I am making is when you have large sections of the population who are sitting without an income, without money, and I know Black Sash has said it as well, where you're saying that even the 350 rand is not enough, and this number needs to to increase. And when we have this huge gap between those who are in dire situations and those that who have got at this point in time, it obviously speaks volumes, as to where we are as a country and how far we have come, despite these calls for unity and coming together and fighting this pandemic.
I guess one needs to begin and say, look, South Africa is one of the most unequal countries in the world. And income inequality is very high. That gap is partly closed by the provision of social grants. to about 18 million people. And we will add to that now the COVID and the caregivers grants that were provided to 7 million for the caregivers and about 6 million for the COVID grant. So the size of the problem is extremely big. Secondly, as we see the COVID grant, the COVID pandemic play itself out globally, the struggle for vaccines, to get herd immunity, and all of those kinds of things. Globally, there's a reset around, the world of work and where things are going. And it's only those who are maybe able to work online, and there's an inequality that is setting in. Those who have access to the internet data, access to devices and so on, are better equipped to deal with the challenges than those who have to work on farms or do precarious work to support themselves. And so unity, sometimes one must think very carefully. You cannot have a third of the people, or even more than that, or half of the population, struggling to work out a living, while others have benefit, and those in government don't act as redistributor of the resources so that everybody can have benefit. So unity must also be accompanied by redistributive mechanisms. And the grants, in this instance, the COVID grant and the caregivers grant, is a further mechanism for redistribution. We need to put those things together rather than just work with them in isolation.
Well, Lynette, thank you very much for that and for your time with us this morning. We wish you all the best. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Lynette Maart, National Director for the Black Sash, joining us this morning. We come back, we'll be joined by Professor Haider Eid, and we're talking about the UAE cabinet that has approved the establishment of an embassy in Tel Aviv in Israel.
They say breakfast is the most important